Welcome to another episode of Lockdown Resilience Coping Skills. I'm not sure what we're calling it, but it's another episode, and I'm getting to speak with a lady I love. It is a friend of mine, Jenny Stead. If you've ever been to the theatre, you have seen her. Jenny is probably one of our most successful theatre actresses in the country. She is a multiple award-winning actress. She is, as I described her earlier, the Meryl Streep of South African theatre.
Sorry.
And she just recently won the Fleur de Cap, another one, for Best Supporting Actress for The Glass Menagerie. She's also appeared on television in TV series like Blood Drive, which was very popular. It's got quite a cult following. TV series recently called Ice, and she was in The Widow with Kate Beckinsale. And she's acted in lots of, I saw her recently in Fatal Attraction, the Rocky Horror Show, you probably saw in that. Jenny is a phenomenal actress, and I feel very privileged to have her sharing the screen with me. She's making everything look a lot more beautiful than I am. So Jenny, thank you for being here.
We both know that's not true.
Yeah, I have to actually come clean with the audience. I have the Zoom beauty filter on, so that's why I look as amazing as I do.
Completely jealous.
So Jenny, thank you for joining me and for being a part of this little mini series where we just talk about the hell we're living in.
I'll do anything to have a conversation with you.
Oh, that's so sweet.
I love
you.
chatting. Thank you. That was a very kind intro. It was, I think, a great exaggeration, but I'll take it anyway.
So disclaimer, I was Jenny's agent for a number of years, so I do know how to sell her. So Jen, tell me about winning the Fleur de Cap, because obviously this is the first time I know of a South African award ceremony happening online. Or what did they do? How did you win this? Did they just courier you the award?
They haven't yet, but they are. So they've just today I got an email from them asking for my address and my phone number and everything. So it was all very, the Fleur de Caps had been planned for February, and just before we went into lockdown, and they didn't let us know whether they were going to go ahead or whether they were going to cancel it until
it's normally a big award ceremony, though. It's normally like,
it's usually quite a big, you know, black tie, get dressed up. It's Distel sponsors it, so there's lots of wine and gorgeous food, very long ceremony, and a big celebration where we kind of just, you know, pat each other on the back. So yeah, then it was kind of last minute. I think there was an invitation in my email the day before. They said we're doing it online. So I knew it was happening, and I'd kind of said to my kids and Johan, oh, they're going to announce the winners tomorrow at 6, and then everyone forgot about it, and I was kind of like, typical family, don't care. And then about 5 to 6, I was in the bath, and I said, you know, they're announcing the winners. And then Johan said, come, we got to, what are you doing? Get out the bath, and get it on the TV. And they kind of got it on the TV, and I got into my pajamas and tied my hair up in a bun, and we sat at the TV, the dogs, the kids, Johan and I, and the ceremony was like, they announced it. It was like 6 minutes. And the winner is da-da-da-da-da, and the winner is da-da-da-da, and these are the nominees, and the winner is, and it went so fast.
They just read it out. It wasn't even like there was any kind of drama or anything involved.
Yeah, it was very, sorry, my dog's growling at the window. It was beautifully done, but it was very, very short, and my category was the second one.
Oh gosh.
So it just, I'm like I didn't hear it really. It just kind of saw my name pop up. But what was awesome was that Fleur de Caps, usually you get, you know, your tickets if you are lucky enough to be invited, or if you're a nominee, and then you get a +1. So usually Johan will come with me. What was nice was that my kids were in the room, and they were so excited, and they were jumping up and down and cheering, and so it was a really nice kind of break from the reality of the mundane lockdown that we've been in.
Yeah.
So even though it was really quick, it was lovely because we kind of got to forget where we're at. And also the big thing is that it's a financial award from Distel, which is really helpful in a time when actors can't work.
So let's
So
talk about that.
yeah.
I want to get your experience of lockdown, but so what has happened for actors now? What theaters are dark. The commercials, are they even vaguely happening? Or auditions happening? What are you doing?
No, so apparently there is work that is happening. So there's some soaps that have gone back and that are shooting under very strict rules and very strict kind of sanitizing everything and skeleton crew. So there are rumors that work has started, but for the most part during the last 2 months there's been no work. It's been an interesting time. Artists are struggling tremendously because there's very little support from government. So even though there is money available, we are lumped together with sport, and they have, the claim from government is that their unions are stronger and that they can, prove that they've lost income. With freelance actors, it's a different story. We have to provide contracts, cancelled contracts, and things like cancelled flights for shoots, and a myriad of documents have to be handed into government in order to get funding, and a lot of artists can't provide that. You can't explain that season is incredibly important for freelancers because that's where we do ads and that's where we make our money, but season came to an end a third of the way.
Yeah.
A third of the way through, and then a lot of the theatre productions haven't been cancelled, they've been postponed. And
but so also just say, and in my experience of commercial shooting is an actor generally gets booked 2 or 3 days before the shoot. It's not like you have work lined up.
No, exactly.
So
Exactly.
it's not like you can get a cancelled contract for a shoot that you didn't know you were going to book.
Exactly. So I was very lucky that I shot 2 ads just before the season ended. I don't know if those ads will ever air because the world has changed so much. I don't know if they can air because the ad exists in a different time without face masks and in public and, with people touching and that kind of thing. So I did manage to get day fees, but I had been optioned for 2 other ads. Being optioned also doesn't mean that you've booked it, but the potential for work is there. So with season having been, it was just ended. And I had a lot of friends who were planning, they were going to Joburg, there were shoots that were happening. I've got a good friend who had work booked up until July with plays and shoots, and all of that is gone. And a lot of these people are the breadwinners of their families, and some people who are artists married to artists. So I feel desperately sorry for actors. Saga is doing a lot to try and convince government that people need aid. But I think I've seen on the various groups that I'm on Facebook, I think one person who has received funding from government, and he had proof of flights cancelled. He's a cameraman, proof of job cancellation. So it was really, from what he'd said, it sounded like it was an international shoot that was happening somewhere in Eastern Europe. So that's quite extreme as well. That's not the norm for performance. Yeah. I'm in a different sort of situation because my husband is able to keep working. So financially, we have been okay. We do rely on a second income. And so it is harder for us. But then we are saving money on petrol and that sort of thing. But it's a really tricky time for artists.
Yeah, I'm sure. And it's I'm going to bring this back to resilience and coping skills because that's kind of what I want to focus on. And one of the things to stay resilient is to remember your why and keep a sense of purpose. And it must be really difficult as a performer in this country or as an artist to keep in mind your purpose when there's absolutely no way of expressing your craft I've seen the odd people doing an online comedy skit, but it's almost like it's this purposeless vacuum, if I want to put it that way. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but it's like, what do you do? There's nothing you can really do if this is your craft and you're living. What purpose do you have?
I think that's an interesting thing because for me, I feel that frequently doing what I do. So I have at least at least twice a year where I feel the same sense of desperation to work, and the, wondering, will I ever work again? Is anyone going to employ me? Why am I not working? Questioning, what else can I do with my degree? Is it too late for me to change career paths now? So I do sink into that periodically when I'm not working. So that was interesting for me, because I feel like I understand this feeling quite well, because I feel it fairly frequently, which is a positive spin, because I know that this too will pass. And I feel like the inevitability of coming out of this, it feels like it is inevitable for me.
Yeah.
But it's also scary, because I know how low I get in those moments too, where I really sink into sometimes quite a deep depression, and I feel, purposeless and useless and really low. So that was scary for me, with no end in sight.
Sure.
So it's been an interesting, grappling with that has been interesting for me.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because one of the things while you're speaking made me think about actors by nature need to be resilient to survive in an industry, because it is an industry where you do live from job to job. I mean, every audition is a job interview where you hope you're going to get the gig, and there are times of famine and there are times of feast, for the lucky ones. So I think you do. So I think you're right. There is a sense of resilience that already exists, and those questioning of my purpose, why am I doing this? And it's interesting that you've brought that into the lockdown, is that the resilience, and that's why I like saying that resilience is a skill. We learn to cope. It's something that we learn from day to day, realizing that my life is like this, therefore I'm going to exist with it as it is. And you've managed to bring that resilience into the lockdown and kind of see it through that lens.
At times, I've also brought in the darkness, So I mean, I think for me, the lockdown has been a complete, like, sort of bipolar experience. There's some days where I'm fine and I'm chipper, and I'm grateful for the fact that I don't have to wake up and do the school run, at the crack of dawn. And enjoying being with family and that kind of thing. And then there are times where I've had proper breakdowns, where I just feel, like tearful and crying and really frustrated, and just feeling like I'm not coping. So it's definitely an up and down sort of thing for me.
What triggers the kind of the I wouldn't say the bipolarness, but the kind of mania where you have these okay moments, but what triggers the kind of moments where you feel like you're not coping?
Different things, I think. The homeschooling has been really hard, and not. It's
You've
such a
got two
strange.
kids. So let's just say you've got twins.
Yeah, I've got two kids. They're 12.
Yes.
And I suppose I thought in the beginning that it would be easier with kids that are in the same grade, because homeschooling, which it should be really, because we can do this, they're doing the same sort of syllabus. Because they're at different schools though, they've been getting different work, and they are required to submit work. And so it's not like I can just go in and say, no guys, we are doing natural science, let us do this together. They do what they need to do for school, so they're quite separate. My daughter is fairly good at just getting on with things, and she gets on her computer and does her work. I've caught her out a couple of times where she hasn't finished work or hasn't done things that she said she was going to do. But my son has been quite tricky. He just is not interested in really doing work. I have to lord over him and motivate him and just encourage him through it the entire time. He's very happy to sit and play Fortnite all day, or to there are things that he's happy to do. He's not unhappy. He's just he needs to be encouraged to work, and I find that incredibly taxing, because it's not like I want to be his guru or cheerleader all the time, and I certainly don't want to be a grade 6 teacher. So I find that has been tricky for me.
So just throw in there, because it's interesting you say that, because it's also for children And what must be difficult, I don't have children, so I'm hoping you can guide me in this, but it must be difficult because home has never represented school. So suddenly home has been a place where I could play, maybe do the odd bit of homework, but it was, the boundary existed that unless you homeschooled, I went to school, I did what I needed to be done there, and I came home and the world was different. And it must be quite a shift for children at the moment to suddenly go, okay, well, home and school and work and teacher are all here right now, and the world is different.
But I think, yeah, and I think that's what's especially difficult, because as a mom, you're concerned about your kids' mental well-being. So I want them to be happy. I want them to socialize. I want them to feel calm. I don't want them to feel stressed in the situation. But then you want them to do things like play Fortnite, because it's a social game. It's on it's a multiplayer platform. So they are chatting to friends, and you're aware of the fact that they've lost that social interaction, which is really important at their age. I mean, they're kind of on the cusp of teenager. But then when you've got kids that are also just happy to chill and be on that platform and aren't disciplined and don't necessarily want to work. So as a parent, trying to find the balance between teaching your kids discipline and the desire to learn and the desire to work, and then also wanting them to be chill and calm. So I fluctuate sometimes between the two. Well, I want them to know the crisis that we're in, and do you really understand the ramifications of what's happening, and how people so close to us are suffering in ways that you have no clue about, and understand your privilege and that kind of thing, and then also just wanting to shelter them from that. So that's been quite an interesting sort of dichotomy for me, in trying to grapple with those things.
Oh, that's massive.
And not feeling content on either side of it.
Yes, sure. Yeah, I mean, it's almost like a cognitive dissonance that's going on in our minds, where we, in the one hand, we know we need to do this, but the brain's fighting with the other part and saying, but we don't know what to be in this kind of world at the moment. And as a mom who's now the teacher, but also trying to keep yourself resilient, how do you protect your children from your breakdowns? Or do you?
How much can I say without losing them? I think I've never been a kind of person that goes and shuts a door and emotes alone. I think that's part of why I'm an actor. So I've always said, my kids have always, I remember my sister-in-law, who's an amazing mom. I remember having a conversation with her, and she's got 3 boys, and she said she's never cried in front of her sons ever. And I've been crying in front of my kids since they were born. Like, it's just, I'm very emotional. I wear my emotions on my sleeve. And I've always said, I mean, my kids, I cry in adverts. I am hyper emotional. I watched a movie called A Dog's Purpose the other day, and just literally sobbed like, I was like, this movie hurts so much. From beginning to end. So my kids, they know, they just look at me and they kind of shake their heads. But so I've always said they are either going to be incredibly intuitive and emotionally kind of, accessible and empathetic, or they're going to be in therapy. But either way, it was my fault. So we've been quite open about our struggles, both Johan and I, just, the difficulties that we've had. And so I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
So I don't know whether it's a good thing or bad thing, but in terms of kind of coping skills, I think one of the most powerful things that we do to learn to be resilient is we become vulnerable. I think by saying everything is okay, actually what that does is it often leads to less coping skills, because it's almost this kind of facade that we're putting on. And often vulnerability means that you need to ask for help. And that's often a way of being resilient, is learning that you need to ask for help. And I think I don't know. For me, I know in my experience in lockdown is that I've been decided to be vulnerable. So part of what I'm doing now, and you agreeing to this, is we're showing off an element of vulnerability that's helping us cope and helping other people cope. People cope through our vulnerability, and hopefully your
Yeah.
children have as well, because they've seen that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to say, I said in a previous episode that Sunday I could not get out of bed. I literally, I felt paralyzed, but for no reason. If you had to ask me what the trigger was, it was just because I just felt like there was no purpose, there was no point. But I knew that I needed to ask for help. I knew that I needed to say, I flagged it with Frank, my partner, and I said, listen, today is not a good day in my head. And that being able to just flag it helped, and was
Yeah.
able to help me
So
cope.
I completely agree with you. I do think the one thing that I've always tried to do as a parent though is to apologize when I know that I've been wrong. So that's something that I've done since they were tiny, is just to be able to go to them and say, I lost my temper, or that wasn't cool, or I was wrong, I didn't understand, I'm very sorry. I like to every year say, I've never been the mother of a 12-year-old, so I'm still learning. I've never been the mother of a 9-year-old, I'm still learning. And so that's kind of been my MO. And I actually did so yesterday I had a total breakdown with my kids, where I was just so mad about something, and I went in and I really lost it, and then sobbed for a good while. Gosh, I don't know why I'm saying this publicly, but I really was. I just felt like the kids had been super difficult with trying to learn, and I had, I'd kind of bowed out, and then neither of them cared. And so until it got to the point that I got really, really upset about the whole thing. And we'd sort of made, everything was fine at supper time, but I was still a bit upset and a bit raw. And then today I went and I spoke to him, and I also trying to unpack all of that for myself. I really thinking about it when I went to sleep and trying to figure out what was it that was making me so upset. And it was a myriad of things. I do want my children to be better. I want them to be good human beings. I want them to value knowledge, and I want them to have discipline and strive to be more than just YouTubers or gamers. That is my desire. But I said to them, I think that also part of why I got so mad is because I'm lonely, and I feel like, because my husband really closes himself off, and he works really hard, and it's important that he works because we're now relying on his income, but he is in his office and he's very busy for the entire day. And then with my kids, we've got to learn, but then they're quite social, so they're playing games and that kind of thing, and being with their friends. And then I was just saying, I think that I sometimes get lonely, and I feel like you don't want to be with me. And it's kind of you know it's also a strange thing, I suppose, to admit to your 12-year-old kids, but when you're in the house and your only job is teacher, maid, chef, mom, wife, sometimes you actually just want to play and you want to have conversations. And the saying of it was really helpful. And so we spent the day, we played hockey outside, and we played games and we chatted, and the day was better. And it's an interesting thing because I'm the grown up and they're the kids, but I'm still vulnerable,
Mhm.
and I still struggle, And
Oh,
so
so,
hopefully that was something that will help them.
well, it sounds like it helped you, because the
It
reality,
helped me. It did help me.
yeah, but
Yeah.
that's the thing is that I think we need to be expressing our need for connection and finding it in ways that are appropriate, in ways that we can. So, at that stage,
Yeah.
it sounds like you needed your kids to connect with you at a different level, other than the, kind of labels you gave yourself, but just as a human being. And I think that's
Yeah.
been so devastating about this pandemic is that we've, like, this has become, it's like when just like we Google things, Zoom has become a verb now. We Zoom each other. This has
Yeah.
become our level of connection, and it's quite a difficult level of connection because it's it's not a natural flow connection. Like I have to wait for you to finish saying something, and then if I speak over you, we both like, sorry, what? And it's not a natural kind of sense of me living in a space I'm used to. And I think the pandemic has removed us so much from the world of connection that we're so used to, that even with things like Zoom and Facebook and all of that, I think we are feeling incredibly lonely. I know I do. I live well in my own space, and I have.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. But I miss a cappuccino and a carrot cake and a yak. And I
But
can't.
also, I think it's the topics, because
Yeah,
I'm so bored of talking about COVID. I'm
totally.
so bored of talking about Corona, and it's all we talk about.
Yeah.
And it's all there is to talk about, you know. So
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing in terms of the connection, is just listening to people. We all sort of, it's the same conversation, you know. You go online and it's the same. I do a thing. I go from I go from like News 24 to CNN to Fox News to what is it, the Guardian, Mail and Guardian, what, no, not the Mail and Guardian, Daily Mail. So I just deteriorate.
You end off with a bit of
I
a bit of.
try. I
Yeah.
just look for something entertaining by the end, and even that, the Daily Mail, it's all just
Yeah.
COVID stuff. You know, it's people walking around in their masks, and so
And
it's
actually, it's
an
amazing you said that,
interesting
because
time.
I read an article about how boring advertising has become. You spoke about it in the beginning about, are the ads even relevant? Because all of the ads are, we're in this together. It's
Yeah.
and everything's, even the ad marketers are trying to, that's all we're talking about. We're talking to each other about COVID. I look at people's Facebook posts. I mean, I saw yours on Sunday where your post was about your frustration with COVID. It's something we are articulating. But what I want to say is it's so important that we articulate our frustrations and we do talk about it.
Yeah.
And I said this before when I spoke to Brent, is that the only way we gain psychological mastery over anything as human beings is by speaking. And that's
Yes.
why, part of why I'm doing these things is because we need to speak about what's going on, but we need to also speak about other things. We need to find levels of connection where we are talking about the kind of stuff we would talk about over a cappuccino and a carrot cake.
Yes, exactly. And it's good. It's good to reach out. I think the other tricky thing is that the days are busy. I think there's this assumption that we've got nothing to do and everyone's just bored, but I don't know. I feel like the days are kind of swallowed up for me. I feel like there's still so much to do. So I have to really purposefully reach out to people and have people, you know, and make the time to be social, because otherwise it doesn't happen. So I've been enjoying doing that. I don't do it enough because I
Yeah.
feel like I don't have time. But when I do feel sort of a sense of kind of renewal and connection. And it does give you, you know, a little bit of purpose, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it is so important. I know, I think about my dad, who I haven't been able to see, obviously, because of lockdown. And he stays in a retirement village. He has no Wi-Fi. He has, his cell phone. He has, television to watch, but he sits at home all day. And so while you're saying, so many people are experiencing the busyness with family, and I've got to take on all these different characters, if you want. And then you've got on the other side, you've got people who are just desperate for some kind
Yeah.
of sense of connection, who are just languishing, who's sitting in a room in their flat, maybe with a cat if they're lucky that comes to visit every now and then, but have no purpose and have nothing to do. And we are
Yeah.
these extremes at the moment, and it's difficult because to some extent I find myself almost envious of the people who've got nothing to do because I've got so much to do. Um, but
But that's exactly, and I think that's a great point, because I found that I did a 21 day sort of like, it was a group sort of challenge, with a couple of friends, which was really lovely, where they would send through kind of meditations, and you would do journal entries and meditate on different things. And the overriding thing that we all came out with was how important a sense of gratitude is. And that's exactly what you're saying. You know, you can, it's so easy to wallow in the misery of your current situation. But if you just take yourself outside of yourself and you think about people that are struggling with loneliness, or, you know, I mean, hunger, or, you know, homelessness, whatever, it's incredible what that sense of gratitude can do for your resilience.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, I do feel like it's also okay to say this is hard. You know, I'm aware of my blessings, but this is still freaking hard.
Yeah, and that's exact. You are spot on the money there, and that's why, for me, coping and learning to cope is being able to experience both those. Is to say, I'm grateful for being in the now, because, you know, it's mindfulness and all that is quite cliche now, but the present moment is all I have. So I'm grateful to be in there. But the present moment isn't actually what I really like. So it's okay to say, I'm grateful that I'm in this moment, but it's not the kind of moment I would be dreaming for my life. So it's okay to say, to live in those worlds. And I think we beat ourselves up because I think we start living in the worlds of I should be more grateful. Look at the homeless for what they have. And so we start actually becoming almost this COVID, we become like COVID guilty, that we carry this blame around, that we've got so much. But then we start, you know, experience this loss about, look how much we've lost. And it's this, like I described as cognitive dissonance. It's this fight going on in our heads. But resilience is being able to accept both. The fact that we need to be able to be grateful, and we need to be vulnerable and be able to say, like, this is really shit.
Completely. Yeah.
And
that's good. That's good advice. I mean, that's so important to remember.
Yeah. What advice have you been giving your kids? We need to head towards wrapping up, and I chose to interview you because I want your mommy knowledge. So there are moms out there who are listening, dads out there who are listening, who have kids at home who, just like you, are wanting to play Fortnite. They expecting you to serve them food. They are not missing their friends, crying because they can't go back to school yet. All of those kind of things. What have you been saying to your kids, and what would you say to the moms and dads out there?
Oh,
I'm putting
such a hard question. I mean, I'm really lucky because my kids are quite content. They are quite happy not to be at school, and they're pretty chilled. And I suppose because they're the same age, it's nice because they've kind of got a built-in playmate. There've been times that they've been sad, and I think my biggest thing is just to express the way that you're feeling, to try and talk about it, and to take what you need for yourself. So if you need to be alone, to express that you need to be alone, and you know, take that moment. If you need to be held, and to say, I just want to snuggle a little bit, and then to do that. You know, I think the big thing is just explaining to them that they are blessed, and that they are loved, and that, you know, these pandemics have happened before, albeit 100 years ago, but that I do believe that we will come out of this, and that we will be okay, and that, you know, just to hold on to the love. So that's kind of what we've been sort of clinging to as a family, is just to appreciate each other and find the friendship and the love, and to enjoy the moments, the extended moments that we have together, because my kids are suddenly hitting that point of really growing very quickly. So, and that's, my only advice to parents would just be to love on your kids as much as you can, and to be gentle with yourselves, because it's hard. You know, it's a tricky time, and as much as you need your kids to take the moments that they need, you also need to take the moments that you do. And sometimes you just need to lie in the bath for 2 hours and watch Schitt's Creek. And
how amazing is Schitt's Creek? Anyway, we'll talk about that after.
Best.
But I love that, and I love, and it's a wonderful way to end, is to hold on to the love. I think that, you know, no matter where we are in the world, love is it, and that's our biggest yearning in life, is connect with people, to be in relationship, and to be loved. And I think if we can demonstrate that to each other and to our kids and, you know, people on social media platforms, wherever it may be, but if we remember just to hold on to the love, I think the world would be a better place, and this pandemic would be a lot easier. I don't know about easier, but it would make it a lot more manageable to cope with.
Because we started out quite loving, you know, those first 3 weeks.
Yeah,
and it's really deteriorated. Yeah, and people are angry now, and it doesn't make it easier when you veer into the anger. You know, signing petitions and things. There is the desire to have control is obviously there. Don't get me wrong. I had a full-on social media warfare with Reader's Warehouse for late delivery, and also realized afterwards that it was just because I wanted control of something.
Yeah.
I was frustrated and I wanted control of something, and even that I don't have control over. But when you frame everything with love and you're more gentle with the people around you, even the people that are walking without their masks on properly, or, you know, and if you are able to understand people's perspective, it does make it easier. Obviously, you should have your mask on properly. There are laws, but it's easy to just veer into a place of complete anger and want to, you know, scream and shout and yell at people. But actually, if we just love each other a little bit harder, I think the entire thing will be easier.
But it is easier said than done, especially in a time when, unfortunately, things feel out of control. And when things are out of control, it always results in anxiety and or anger. And so we're just seeing all the ramifications of that. And hopefully conversations like you and I having will just shift one or two people just to be able to say, okay, I'm not going to respond from this place of rage, because what purpose is it really serving me? But perhaps I can respond from a place of that just says, what's going to make life better for the people I interact with. I try and do that. I don't always win. I spoke to Brent and he was like, my partner and I haven't even had one fight. And I'm like,
I heard that. Yeah.
You know, I'm like, I didn't respond to that because we're meant to fight. You know, it's relationship. We've just got to walk away and say, what's the most loving thing I can do to the response I've just had.
I love that he said that, and I thought it was fantastic. I loved a lot of what he said, the hoarding thing. I'm exactly the same, also from a fairly, you know, financially lower bracket sort of family. So I'm also a big hoarder, which stood me in very good stead as well. So that was good. But the fighting with a partner thing, that has not, I have not experienced that. It's been, you know, we've taken on projects together, we've painted walls and we've done things, and it's been lovely, but it's also been hard. Yep. But it's been great to watch my partner and appreciate how amazing he is and how he's held me up when I've felt low, and hopefully vice versa, you know, but also to appreciate the tricky things with him working all day. Now I've got to go take him lunch, that kind of thing. And then it sounds really nasty, but you know, if you're making stuff for kids, and then you feel like, oh, I better go take him a cup of coffee too, and really feeling quite irritated about it, but then realizing that this man is working to provide for us, and it's not easy for him either, and kind of reaching beyond yourself. And then when you do that, everything becomes more gentle, and it does become easier, and you start seeing them with different eyes and just being grateful for that partnership. I'm lucky that we're also very good friends, and I like him a lot. Yeah. But it's not always easy.
I've met him. He's a nice guy.
Yeah, he's okay. He can stay.
Jenny, that's a lovely note to end on. The power of connection and the power of relationship and resilience is so important, and it's important that
friendship.
And it's important that we just keep connecting with each other, and make ways of doing it, even though they might feel manufactured at times. It's been great connecting with you. Thank you for the time you've given me. Thank you for sitting in a beautiful little area with foliage around you so that you could have
this old thing?
So you could have this quiet little moment to chat to me. I really do appreciate it. You've given me a lot of stuff to think about, and a lot of hope, and I'm sure that people watching will feel the same. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I love chatting to you. I am so looking forward to seeing the rest of your interviews. I'm so glad you're doing this because I love your perspective, and I think you are just so smart and so kind and so funny. So best of luck.
Stop. This is about you.
No, really.
I appreciate that. And yeah, we will talk more very soon, I'm sure.
Yes.